Good day, my name is Mike and this is my page Faithway Outdoors. Today I will be doing a video on the wiring configuration for the ArcLab 5200 series Deluxe Shuttle. This will not be a video about the actual assembly of the shuttle itself, but the wiring inside. When I looked at the diagram provided to me by ArcLab, I found it very confusing and not very straightforward. So because I felt the need, I definitely needed assistance, and then I ended up figuring it out myself. So I figured somebody else out there might be dealing with the same problems. So it will be a step-by-step tutorial and walkthrough on how to assemble the wiring harness inside. The shuttle that I'm referring to is the 5200 series Deluxe. It is the one that has your power switch, the voltage display, the 12-volt cigarette outlet, and the USB port. There is also a 5200 series. The non-deluxe just has an on and off power switch. This will be for the deluxe variant. There's a lot more wire connections because there's more outlets that need to be hooked up. So without further ado, we'll get into this video, and thank you for watching. Alright, getting into nomenclature. So while you were looking at this front panel, now that it is off, when you were looking at the shuttle itself, I highly recommend that you put it in the orientation that the diagram comes from ArcLab. Some people move them around, what works best for them. For simplicity's sake, I recommend following the instruction starting from the top right here. You have your power switch, voltage display, 12-volt cigarette outlet, and your USB outlets. Notice this notch here on the left-hand side. You are going to be flipping this around so that this notch is on the right-hand side. It's a direct mirror representation because that is how this diagram is formatted for the orientation of actually hooking the wires, the connectors in the back of these outlets. So the only outlet here that has 3 connectors on it is your power switch itself at the top left here. The things that were confusing me most was this 2-flat, the wiring harness where it connects, and this inline fuse that you have to buy separately. It was giving me a bunch of complications. It was kind of driving me crazy. So this is a step-by-step walkthrough on how to wire this accordingly to make the most sense so that you don't have to struggle like I did. I'm trying to get this in a way where this ain't all tangled up together. Alright, so hopefully we don't have any camera complications here. So the way that I broke it down and what I recommend doing is I'm gonna break this down in runs of wiring and the lengths and what end connectors to use. And as you go along with making the certain segments, when you get the end connectors, I recommend that you plug them directly into these outlets right away. Why? Because it keeps everything organized. Okay? So the very first run that we're gonna do is with this 16 AWG wiring, you cut a section off about 10 inches. And you don't necessarily have to, well, I suppose you do actually. You would have to strip these all the way apart, all the way down, because you need to be able to T-tap these. So with that 10-inch section of wiring, you're gonna put female end connectors, quick connects, on both ends. So you'll have 4 connectors, female total, 1 on each end. And then at this USB outlet, you will plug it in, and then at the voltage display, you will plug them in. So now you have the top right and this bottom left one connected with a wire. I know right now it seems a little overwhelming because there's a lot of wires, so I'm going to try to take this as slow as possible. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to make 4 jumper, I'm going to call them jumper wires because they're shorter. You're going to make 4 of them at roughly 3 inches. Okay, 4, and you're going to have 4 female connectors and 4 male connectors. Females on all ends of the 4 wires, and then 4 of the male connectors on the other end. With those female end connectors, you're going to plug them in to this 12-volt socket. Plug those in. The male connectors you can leave hanging out for now. And then on this power switch, there are 3 here, but this is a positive, a negative, and then you have your middle. We'll worry about the middle one later. You plug the female into the power switch, and then the male. Okay, now with the T-taps, these T-tap connectors or T-splices, on your continuous run, off of this 10-inch one that we ran first, you take these, you put the wire in, and you lock them in place, right? You crimp them down. You'll hear an audible click. If you'd like to, I didn't, but if you would like to, you could put an electrical grade silicone to help waterproof it. Realistically, not a whole lot of water is going to get inside this system. I haven't had any complications of corrosion, but if you'd like to do the additional step, you're more than welcome to. Put them in the connectors before you seat everything. So you'll T-tap off this 10-inch run here. I recommend that you keep them at the same distance from one another. If you're going to do 4 inches from the connector at the switch, do it 4 inches on both negative and positive to keep things symmetrical. So then this portion is done here. This next run that you did off the power switch or your other 3-inch cables, same thing, but it's going to be jumping off this voltage display. You can put them 2 inches, 3 inches, but you T-tap the 10-inch line wire again. Okay, so now this portion from the switch to the voltage display is done. Next thing, we'll worry about this one very last. The next thing, off these 3-inch jumpers that run between your power switch to your voltage display, you are going to T-tap them again. And what this wire here is your positive, and then your negative here. This is your Garmin wiring harness, okay? This one has the additional gray connect so that you could pigtail wires to plug in additional accessories if you choose. You don't necessarily need to use it on these shuttles because you have the USB ports, so it kind of subtracts you needing to use these. And on the wiring harness itself, coming off of, it's the opposite side from where the actual wiring harness connects to your chart plotter and the GLS 10. On these, I have 2 female connectors on there. So you're gonna make, these are slightly longer. I would recommend that you do them the same length. Make 2 other 10-inch jumpers. Make those 10-inch jumpers, but unlike the last 10-inch ones that we ran where they were female, these are gonna be male, because you need to be able to hook it into this T-tap here. So male, and then male on the other end. Same thing with the negative. Male and male. They plug into your Garmin wiring harness. Your red one is going to be continuous with no T-taps, and your black one is going to get tapped once. So it connects to here, from your power switch to the voltage display. It gets tapped into these 3-inch wires. One negative goes to Garmin wiring harness to the negative. The positive goes to the positive. Okay, here it is. Now, very lastly, before we get into this inline fuse here, your negative battery terminal, it's down in here. It's plugged into the negative terminal of the battery. This comes out, there's a 6-inch jumper. I wonder if I can orientate this camera so that you could see it a little bit. I gotta get my screen to turn on. There we go. There's a 6-inch jumper here. This is the negative battery terminal. And then that is going to be a female connector. Make it 6 inches long. Female to a male. And then you're gonna T-tap this black 10-inch one that runs to the Garmin wiring harness once. One time you're gonna tap this, okay? Then you're done with the negative, excuse me, there's one more step. Off of that 6-inch jumper that you made to tap this 10-inch one, you're gonna tap it one more time. Do it 3 inches off of this negative terminal, you tap it, and this is for your 2 flat. This is the, off the side here, there is a quick charger, 2 flat charger, that allows you to charge this without getting into the internals. You don't have to take, once this is done correctly, this is an enclosed system, so you should never have to open this thing up. That negative one, I had to buy a separate 2 flat. Just like a pickup truck, you have a 4 flat for a trailer hookup. It's the same thing, but it's just a positive negative. This one had a white negative to the black, okay? If you get one that's black, red, white, whatever. But my red connects to the positive. So you do it 3 inches or so off of your terminal. I just tapped them here because then I can access them if I need to for future reference. But 3 inches off of each the negative, and the positive terminal. So this is for the black on that 2 flat. There's a 2 flat connector that bolts to the side of this to complete this circuit. Now, the very last thing is this positive that is the center terminal of this power switch. This is essentially your positive lead to your battery terminal. This is that 10 amp micro fuse in here. This goes female. You run, it comes, like I said, it comes in that little loop. The fuse at the bottom, cut it in the middle, put 2 females on it. One goes in this middle terminal here on the power switch, and then the other one plugs into the battery. And then 3 inches off the battery terminal, like the negative terminal for the battery, you're gonna T-tap that, and that is the other positive. That is the other side of the 2 flat for the positive side to be able to quick charge it. The biggest complication that I had, just to reiterate, is this Garmin wiring harness, knowing where it connects into this whole mess here. You need this inline fuse to continue the circuit, and also they don't provide you with any wiring, so you use that 16 AWG. It is rated for outdoor use, electrical, aquamarine grade. The stuff that I will post in the description is a marine grade wiring, so you don't have to worry about as much corrosion, shorting, things like that. But you definitely need this inline fuse. You have to provide your own wiring and connect this throughout. 16 works the best, along with the compatible adapters, that 14 to 18 gauge wiring for the male and female quick disconnects. You buy them in a tub. You're gonna need quite a few of them, because I noticed even with a good set of wire strippers or crimpers, you still mess up the crimp every once in a while. So it pays to buy more than what you need, because you're likely to make a few mistakes. This positive terminal then connects, it's listed here as your battery. So this, I'm just kind of recapping this whole thing, trying to make sense of this whole diagram. This USB, this is where your first 10-inch run goes here, from your USB to the voltage display. Okay, positive, negative for both. Female. Then this is your jumper, your first jumper of the 3-inch, which is female, male on one end, taps into the 10-inch. The next one that is tapped in, the next 3-inch jumpers, female, male, that tap into the 10 the second time. Now, for your jumpers to the wiring harness, they come off of here, but this is so garbled up for me that I could not make sense of this. So that jumper that's here, pull my camera up a little bit, change my angle here. This is those second 3-inch jumpers. This is where you make another continuous 10-inch run to the Garmin wiring harness. It looks like this, right? It has this little box on it. This is where all the wires are spliced together on the inside. Then it connects to this positive. Your negative is the same thing that comes off the negative jumper, goes to the Garmin wiring harness, negative, and then it's tapped. So now that we're done with this portion, it's between the second 10-inch wire that gets tapped, T-tapped off your negative battery terminal, and this is your positive lead to the battery, female. It gets tapped one time with this 2 flat, and then your 6-inch jumper, which is your battery lead, taps into this 10. It gets tapped one more time for your 2 flat. I pray that this makes sense. I'm trying to go as slow as possible so that it makes sense here. The other thing is, when it comes to, this is just one thing to note, being that this is the only one that has 3, it's also the only one where these terminals that are on the outlet are actually narrower. They are actually narrower than the other terminals. So if I pull this other one on the other switch, this one is like a standard size. You see how it's wider than this little guy? So what I recommend you doing is, on this female quick connect, you just crimp this down a little bit so that it will actually stay put put and not wiggle its way out. But yeah, it goes like so. And then to give you a demonstration before we put this panel back up and put everything back in place, adjust my camera a smidge here. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna take this panel off. And this is your on-off switch. So we're turning it on. It might be flickering for you, but it's reading 16.8 volts. This is a 16 volt Norsk battery. This is your voltage display here, your 12 volt and your USB outlet. The USB outlet is illuminated, and I have a charger here. Plug it in. Plug my phone in. See, you can see it's charging there. Unplugged it. And then the nice thing, I'm plugging my phone back in. The nice thing is that this works independently here. So you can turn off your chart plotter. Probably gotta wait for this thing to power up all the way here when I get the agree to terms or whatever. Come on. Because what this does, this chart plotter works independently off of the shuttle itself. So let's say you're done fishing, you're on your way out, your phone's dead, or you need to charge something, or maybe it's at night. If you're ice camping, you need to charge your phone while you sleep. If you don't have an external power bank, this is your power bank now, right? If you wanted to use it, so you could turn this off independently, or we'll just shut it off completely. So powering down, but this is still running. My phone is still being charged. So you can now shut this off, but when you when you turn this back on, the chart plotter ain't going to, you can actually see it, charge my phone when I turn it back on. When I turn this back on, the chart plotter doesn't come up because I shut this off first. So now that I power it back up, it'll say Garmin. Now when this is on, the chart plotter's on, and the shuttle portion is on with the switch. Now that they're sunk up, when I flip the switch, it's off. Now it's back on. And that is the way it's supposed to be functioning properly. When you spend the money on the upgraded unit for the Deluxe, you expect everything to work as it should. I think the reason why I got inspired to make this video is because I actually know 2 other people that have the same exact shuttle, and it does not work properly. I think the power switch is the only thing that works, and all these outlets are dead, or some people have them UV glow, like jig, the UV light to charge up your jigs. Doesn't work. So I seen the need, and this video is to fulfill that need. Because if you spend the money, you want your stuff to work properly, and when you have the time to get out and go fishing, it's just one less thing you gotta worry about. If you spend the money, it should be working properly. And I just found personally that these instructions were very vague. They didn't give you everything that was needed. They give you one connector per connection, and if you messed it up one time or tried to jam 2 pigtailed wires together, they were donezo. So you ended up buying all the connectors separately anyway. I am done with this portion of the video. What I'm gonna do next is just a couple other little tips and tricks that I learned. I know this ain't a video about the actual assembly of the shuttle. Reason being is that there's multiple other videos of that, but I hadn't found a video of the actual wiring configuration itself, which is why I'm doing this. But with that assembly, there are a couple other things that I learned while doing this that will save you some heartache, some headaches, and we'll get to that in this next portion here. All right, now that I got my little tripod set up, when you close this thing up, just be cautious. Anything wiring related never does good when it's bent at sharp angles. So try to just tuck this in the best as you possibly can. When you assemble this, make sure that your battery is centered so that you can get everything tucked off to one side here, one side or the other. It gives you a little bit more room. And then, yeah, you would take this and get all your little wires all tucked back in there. Make sure you're not pinching them on the panel. And then, yeah, 2 little bolts go down at the bottom here. Just gonna try to get these in here for now to just hold it maybe. Ah, forget it. One thing I did want to touch on, I gotta rotate this thing around here. We'll talk about hardware, and then the next thing I want to mention is kind of tidying up your wires. Like me, I got the LVS34 LiveScope Plus transducer. I have a transducer cable that's fit for a boat. I know they make some smaller, more compact ones. That's not the case with me, so I have a lot of wire that I need to coil up. The one thing I wanted to touch on, if I can get a good angle of it, is on the bottom here. So they come with different hardware, but they don't specify what hardware goes where, okay? So there's only 4, I believe, of these flat ones, and I kind of just willy-nilly threw them in there, not knowing. So you have round ones on your quick connect for the charger, and then there's some on the back that mount this side plate to the back plate, like the main body of the shuttle. These flat ones here, I initially put the flat, or these rounded ones on the bottom, but they have a little cutout there. It's like recessed a little bit in there. And I put the round ones on there, and everything that I set this shuttle on just scratched the ever-living you-know-what out of it. So I ended up flipping this hardware around, putting flat ones, because now it's flush and smooth. And when these rounded, like Phillips heads like this, they have like a little sharp burr on it, and it seems that they just dig into everything that they make contact with. So that's something to watch out for. Use the flat ones for the bottom, and then everything else is the rounded ones. Like for the quick connect outlet here, and then on the back here, there's 2 more down here, 1 and 2, and then I believe I had to buy this hardware too with the lock nut. I bought them about 1 inch. I think they're 1/4 by 20 thread with the washers. Moving on to the neatness, just camera here, the neatness of the cable. So I got these at Home Depot. They're called Rapids. They're meant for organizing extension cords and things like that. I'm not a big zip tie fan. I know people like them, but I find zip ties are sharp and they snap and they get brittle. So you can get these as well. These are made two different kinds of wraps. They accomplish the same goal. They're both made by Velcro. This is the 1 wrap heavy duty roll. This is like a little bit softer in texture. I never did get around to using that, but I bought it just in case. I can use it for other things as well. But this Velcro tape, this comes in a roll, and then what you do is you peel it off the roll, and then they have a little cutout portion. This little tab here kind of pops out, and then you wrap the wiring as you need, and then you pull it tight, and then it sticks to itself. So that's what I did for organizing. I got a couple of them wraps on the bottom here, and I got the Rapids on the other side because these aren't as brutal. You definitely don't want to kink or restrict your wiring at all as far as like narrowing diameter by cinching it too tight, because that causes resistance, and resistance in electrical is never good. And then the last little thing here that I bought, you can buy them from other ice fishing manufacturers that make these shuttles, compatible ones for their systems. I went to Fleet Farm and I went to the storage and shelving area, and I believe these are like just garage hooks that you use for hanging bikes and things. I ended up buying 2 of these, and conveniently enough they are rubberized, so it's not bare metal. And all I did is bought some 1/4 inch by 20 thread with lock nuts, 4 of them, 4 bolts, 4 nuts. They're literally a 1/2 inch long. Drilled the hole, drilled it in the back here, and put lock nuts on. And it's convenient because these forks face outwards, right? So it keeps my cable in place, and it keeps everything tight and together without kinking anything. So that's just one little tip I thought I'd throw out there, because if you're OCD like me, I like things to be organized and clean. I don't want my cables to be a mess. And then when you're pulling up your cables and they're getting wrapped and caught on everything. It makes me angry. So that's just a little tip for you. But we are done with this section of the wiring harness and the other couple little tips that I had. Now I'm gonna flip the camera around, we'll do a quick closing video, and we are all set. All right, well, we have the front plate back on, everything is enclosed, everything is hooked up properly, working properly. Just want to thank you once again for watching my video. I hope you found it greatly beneficial. I know that I had a lot of complications, was running into a lot of issues when setting this thing up, and I know that when you pay for something, you want it to work properly. So I hope that, knowing that this is the first video of its kind dealing with this Deluxe Shuttle and the wiring configuration, I'm just praying that I can help out somebody in any way, shape, or form. Thank you again. If you have any questions, I will be posting my email in the description bar. Please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions or you need anything expanded further. I'm always here to help. This what this Help Me video is all about. In the future, with this page, I plan on doing more DIY things like this, any help tutorial videos, as well as posting duck hunting content, fishing content. I am a licensed Wisconsin guide. I have an LLC for a small business for the guide service, and it's just what I feel called and passionate to do, so if I can help people along the way. If you are in Wisconsin, please feel free to reach out to me. I live in the southern Wisconsin region, the greater Madison area, but I travel pretty much all over Wisconsin to hunt or fish. So I thank you for watching my video. All the parts and pieces that were used, anything that will be needed, will also be posted in the description. I thank you very much for watching my video, and God bless you abundantly in the name of Jesus Christ.